Okay?
Yeah, you can start actually.
Hari Om. Let's start with 3 Oms and Sahana Vatu and Guru Stotram.
Tamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Stotra. Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darsitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Ajnanatimirandasya jnananjanashalakaya chakshumilitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Stavaram Jangamam Yaptam Yatkinchis Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darsitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Yapiyat Sarvam Mukyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darsitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Sarvam Adeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. We are doing the second chapter of Panchadashi, where Vidyaranya analyzes the Chandogya Upanishad statement Sadeva Saumya Idamakramasid Ekameva Advitiyam as a part of Panchabhuta Viveka. So this he introduced the 5 primordial elements through Shabda Sparsa Rupa Rasa Gandha properties Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. These 5 have properties of Shabda Sparsa Rupa Rasa Gandha because an element can only be determined through its property. So any object in essence is determined via the property of, or its property or attributes of the property. Therefore, it's imperative that we should know what exactly that specific property that differentiates that object or uniquely differentiates that object compared to other objects. For Akasha, the immediate or the specific property is Shabdam. So Akasha, Vayuhu, it has Shabda plus Sparsha, and similarly in the same order as each element is picked up, as grossification, it picks up the additional attributes Shabda, Sparsa, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. So by the time you come to the grossest element, which is Prithvi, you have all the 5 properties of, along with the specific property of the earth, which is the Gandham. And in the previous sloka, it has either good smell or a bad smell. Smells are two, that which you like or which you don't like. Both are within the in the earth. So all the smells that you observe due to the mass is due to the Prithvi. Now we are doing the sloka 7. Karnadi golakastam tat Karnadi golakastam tat Sabdadi grahakam kramat Sabdadi grahakam kramat Sauchmyat karyanumeyam tat Sauchmyat karyanumeyam tat Prayodhavid bahirmukham Prayodhavid bahirmukham. Together. Karnadi golakastam tad Sabdadi grahakam kramat Sauchmyat karyanumeyam tad Prayodhavid bahirmukham. So here, even though it talks about we have 5 senses corresponding to the 5 elements, so there are jnanendriyas, 5 jnanendriyas, the sense organs, and these jnanendriyas operate through an external instrument, and karna, they are called golakam. Golakam is an instrument or equipment through which the senses are operating. Karnadi, karna means the ears. So ears, etc. or golakam stat golakastam tad shabdadigrahakam kramat. In that order, the shabda sparsa rupa rasa gandha, in that order you have ears, shabda, sparsa is in the skin. All the skin has the sensitivity to have the touch. So Sabda Sparsa, Rupa is coming through the eyes, and Sabda Sparsa Rupa Rasa to the tongue, and Sabda Sparsa Rupa Rasa Gandha through the nose. So each equipment is also provided through which these 5 senses are operating through. So Sabda, the Grahakam, they are catched or they are perceived through these five golakas. Golakas is the body instruments that are available. So the nature has provided 5 elements, and there are 5 senses, and there are 5 senses are operating through 5 instruments, through which body instruments, so through which those are grosser elements, so through body instruments they operate through. So how do we know 5 indriyas are there, 5 jnanendriyas are there? All we know is we see here, ears, we see eyes, we see skin, we see tongue, and so on. So how do we know all the 5 senses are operating? So just because the equipments are not is there doesn't mean that they are functioning, because there are people eyes are open but cannot see. So the sensitivity to be able to see is indriyam, but only the eyes are only golakam. Golakam is only external instrument. Eyes are not the really jnanendriyas. Eyes are means through which the jnanendriyas are functioning. So how do I know there are jnanendriyas? They are subtle. Jnanendriyas are sauchmya. Sauchmya means they are subtle things. They are not gross, and therefore doctor doesn't know whether you have hearing problem or not. You have to tell. I don't know, right? We told last time what is the hearing test. So you have to tell whether I can hear this, I can hear. So in fact I have to go for a hearing test. So you have to keep changing the frequency until at what frequency range you hear, and you have to tell whether you hearing or not. So because it is sauchmya, it is very sensitive. Sauchmya, because indriyas are subtle, and it's part of the subtle body. And karya, so how do we know? Karya anumeyam tatu. So anumeyam is by reasoning, we can infer. Anumana is a pramana. Pramana is a means of knowledge. Through logical means, by deducting reason, yes, he is able to hear. Therefore, his ears and all those things are functioning. So, the functioning of the hearing system and all that can be only known because of by testing, by deductive process, by essentially inference that yes, he can see. If we cannot see all the colors, then we say he has a color blind. How do we know? By inference, because he is not able to differentiate some colors. Only by anumeyam. Anumeyam means by deductive reasoning, one can determine that my subtle elements are functioning. Otherwise, I won't know. I cannot see subtle elements. Is a mind? I cannot see. Is there a mind is there? Is mind different from brain? If you go into the Googles and ask what is a mind, you get lots of psychological theories, philosophical theories. Is mind a matter or doesn't matter? Is that what is a matter? All these and classification. There is a conscious mind, there is a subconscious mind, and there is an unconscious mind. Psychologically, they try to differentiate all that. And all these senses payodhavedi bahirmukham. So they payodhavedi, they run out, so naturally run out, bahirmukham, externally. They keep running out and catch the grahaka means they catch the respective objects. So hearing, you take the sounds and all that. Similarly, eyes can only see forms and colors, and similarly all taste everything else. So they run out and catch. So bahirmukham. So here we have to know a little bit of Vedantic understanding of how senses function versus scientific theories. So according to Vedanta, the mind goes along with the indriyas. Mind goes out along with the indriyas, and mind captures the object, and indriyas sense the properties of the object, getting reflected or properties of the object, and comes back. So it is the mind that travels out also, according to the Vedantic theory. But in the process of the scientific theories, we don't know what mind is. It's a subtle instrument. But the idea is the information is brought to the eyes, just like the light travels from outside to the eyes, and through the retina you're forming an image in the retina which is transmitted through the optical nervous system as electrical signal. That much we know. That much only science can tell. But how does the electrical signal transform into a thought process? That is essentially a program, right? Just like plus minus science is transformed into a software program. You need a program module should be there that transfers the electrical signal into a language that mind can understand. So mind can understand only thought process because it's a certain. So that is still a black box. We do not know. So both science point as well as the Vedanta point, we don't know. Vedanta also says it is transmitted and the information forms a vritti. Vritti means a thought. How? Don't ask how. That's how it forms, because that is what we see. So in either case, the end product is formation of vritti. Vritti is a thought process, and there's ignorance is there in the black box, because how the electrical signal is transmitted into the program through some unknown program language. We don't know how to break that code, and that is transformed into a thought process. In either way, we do not know. Whether the mind goes out and captures or the information is brought in is in principle is not that relevant as far as I am concerned. But according to a lot of the Purvamimamsa and some of the Vedantic students, so they subscribe to the Vedantic theory. I don't know whether it's Vedantic or it is at least the Navya Nyaya and Mimamsa is rest on that approach. So if you go to my website, there is a text called Critical Evaluation of Vedanta Paribhasha. There I am discussing all these epistemological analysis where my understanding differs from the other understanding also has been pointed out there. But for me, as far as I'm concerned, because of my scientific background, information is brought to the mind and forms a thought process, all the information, and that seems to be a valid without violating any of this. But as far as Vedanta is concerned, the mind also travels along with the senses. So senses have to go. And since it is the senses that sense the properties, and the mind only provides a vehicle for it to go and come back. So with that, let's go to the next. So this is how I see the whole world. So the whole world is through my five senses, and the world has properties corresponding to these five. So Shabda, Sparsa, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. So every object that you can think of has one of these or more of these properties through which I can gather information about the object. So what information I gather? I gather only properties of the object, right? From the properties, I can infer what the object is, because the senses cannot sense the material. You have to be very careful here. I have only five senses. Senses cannot sense the material, like whether it's a gold or whether it is silver or whether it is iron. Senses cannot sense the material. It can sense the gold reflection, gold color. That is also a property that it can sense, or silver color, or iron color, or no color. All those senses, all only colors and forms only it can, but not the AU or AG. It cannot determine. It can be looking like a gold. It may not be gold. Isis cannot go. That's why Eureka story, right? Eureka story is because it was looking like gold, and he has to determine whether it's really gold or not, because the senses say it's gold. But he has to find a density in which specific gravity, in which the gold has its specific gravity compared to some other. That's how Archimedes comes out as Eureka, right? So, which means that you need to have to do something else, some other property that can differentiate one from the other. So, senses by themselves cannot distinguish what material it is. But senses alone can be used to know the world. So, we do not know through the senses what material it is. Now, how do we know what is substance? We will never know the real substance. Only we can know a transactional substance. And real substance is, the scripture says, Sadeva Saumya Idamagramas. Existence alone was the real substance. And science is trying to find out what is the real substance, what is the fundamental particle. So the so-called God particle, electrons, protons, and electrons, all are, if you look at all, those are fundamental particles. So any differentiation that we are doing outside from one material to other material is only external, nothing to do with the material itself. It's only packaging, because the packaging of how the electrons, protons, neutrons are packed. Fundamentally, they are just electrons, protons, neutrons. So gold is different from iron, not from the protons, electrons, neutrons, only by how the atoms are packed. How many neutrons are there, how many electrons are there, and one atom is different from another atom. So the properties that you differentiate and the material that you think is different material is only just a packaging, outside packaging only. In essence, they are not really different. So if I go back to what is the fundamental essence of matter, science is still not evaluated yet. They are still looking for what are the fundamental particles. But the scripture says you will never get it, because the fundamental particle is the existence itself, and that's where this scripture becomes a pramana for it. So how am I going to prove that existence alone? You cannot prove it. That's what he's going to tell us. So because from our point, hey, I'm seeing the world, it is real. That's what a scientist will say. What you're seeing is only properties that are gathered by the senses. Okay, this has to be clear. Where science ends and where philosophy has to start. So science can never will be able to tell us exactly the fundamental truth, because that's the problem involved. So this is going out and gaining the properties of the matter, and therefore all the objects in the world is through this Shabda Sparsa Rupa Rasagandha. Now he says they are going out in the previous sloka. Even the internal, going means inside the body, because going out is with respect to the body. Even the Sparsa Rupa Rasagandha's properties inside the body also can be gathered by the senses. He is going to give how inner perceptions also can occur. This is in the sloka 8 and 9, I think. Kadachit pihate karne, kadachit pihate karne, kadachit pihite karne, kadachit pihite karne, shruyate sabda antaraha, shruyate sabda antaraha, pranavayau jataragnau, pranavayau jataragnau, jalapaninna bhakshani, Paninna bhakshani. Together. Kajat pihite karne, shruyate sabda antaraha, pranavayau jataragnau, jalapaninna bhakshani. So kadachit, sometimes. So pihite karne, karne pihite. When your ears are close to the external world sounds, when you are concentrating internally, then you can listen to the sounds that are made by the body also. So he is giving examples. Pranavayu, sometimes breathing you can hear. Jataragno, if the stomach makes a lot of noise, you can hear. So essentially sounds of hunger. Jalapani, when you are drinking water, so drinking water also you can hear. Anna Bhakshani, while eating food also you can hear. That how Antaraha Shabdaha, inner sounds, Shruyati, are heard through the five senses. So not only running outside, it can gather the information from inside also. So he's going to give another example also, some more. Vyajante hyantara sparshaha, vyajante hyantara sparshaha, milane chantaram tamaha, milane chantaram tamaha, udgare rasagandhau cha, udgare rasagandhau cha, ityakshanam antaragraha, ityakshanam antaragraha. Together. Vyajante hyantara sparshaha, milane chantaram tamaha, udgare rasagandhau cha, ityakshanam antaragraha. So Vyajante, so Antaraha Sparsaha. So what about the Sparsha? Sparsha is external skin. So how do you know the Sparsha? Sometimes you can feel the inner senses also, inner touches also. When something is twisting or turning inside the stomach, says I am having a pain there because my having problems, people can gather. So even Sparsha, internal Sparsha also can. So particularly when the movement of bowel or movement of food, you can feel it. So this is how Vyajante, one can experience the inner sparsha also. Milani chantaram tamaha. And when you close your eyes and you can see darkness, you can see darkness even though eyes are not going out, you are only close the eyes, but still I can see darkness through the eyes or through the eyesight. So you can still function internally. So this process can occur. There is a story of in the Krishna Karnamrutam where Krishna says, Krishna to Yasoda says, shh. So Krishna says, I close eyes, Mommy, I want that book, I want that milk in the vessel. And he says, no, that's for night. So then what is night? light is when it is dark. Then he closes his eyes. Mommy, it is dark now. So give me that milk. So there is a beautiful sloka which, if you want to know, I discuss those in my website. So Milani chantaram tamaha. So by closing the eyes, one can see the darkness through the eyes. Udgare rasagandhaucha. So when you're belching, when you're completely full, you can feel the taste inside. So udgare rasaga. He's very methodical. Iti akshanam antaragraha. In this way, akshana means senses can grasp the inner feelings or inner senses also. Now I want to say here there are two types of inner. One is, this is what is inner equipments or inner functioning or presence of can be gasped through the senses. That's called inner perception. There is internal perception which is different from inner perception. Internal perception where senses do not operate. Now I am perceiving the whole world through my five senses, right? But there is an internal perception where senses don't function. These five senses don't function is when I recollect from the memory. So when I close my eyes and recollecting something that is from the memory, when I say cow, immediately I see a picture of cow. It's not through the five senses now I'm seeing. Whatever the stored information where it is not the senses, it's the memory recollection of the image that is formed along with the attributes of the object. So it is I have collected before, right? Recollection means I involved collection before through the five senses and the mind. Through the five senses and the mind also. Without the mind, five senses cannot function. Mind is out of mind, out of sight. So I have senses, mind, and once the mind, it can store into the information, into the memory, and then I can recollect. That's one kind of internal perception. The second kind of internal perception is when you are in happy, when you are suffering, or dukkham, sukham, all those feelings that you have, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, madam, acharyas, that's all the emotional things, there is no sense input there. It is internal perception. I am angry. How do you know I am angry? Because I know I am angry. Through what? Can you see anger? Can you touch? It's none of the five senses are functioning. So internal perceptions are also analyzed exhaustively by our in that Vedanta Paribhasha. So therefore, there are inner perceptions that he is talking about where senses are functioning. There are internal perceptions where I don't need a sense input, but I can still feel the world. So world, total, Jagat involves all this. Through the five senses, the external world, and without the senses, all other things that I can experience is also part of the world. Okay? So that is essentially the total Jagat involved. So up to this, he has discussed the Jnanendriyas, sense organs. He is going to talk about now Karmendriyas. Panchokti adana gamana, Panchokti adana gamana, Visargananda ka kriyaha, Sargananda ka kriyaha, Krushi vanijya sevadyaha, vanijya sevadyaha, Panchasvantar bhavantihi, together, Panchokti adana gamana, Visargananda ka kriyaha, Krishi vanijya sevadyaha, Panchasvantar bhavantihi. So there are activities that are going on through the body. So these activities are classified. Kriyaha, kriya means actions, are classified as 5 essential types. So first he is classifying the types and then classifying the organs. So there are 5 fundamental actions and they are called pancha. There are 5. Ukti, it said that there are 5. One is adana. Adana means handling. So can you hold this watch? Immediately you stretch your hand. So it is the hands through which you hold things. So whatever you hold is an action. So action involving holding. That's called adana. Gamana. Gamana is movement from one place to other place. So for that, for at least humans, we need a feet. We go by, not by crawling, but by feet. So gamana involves feet. So visarga. Visarga is excretion. Anandakaha. Anandakaha is the reproductory actions. So ukti I forgot. Ukti is speech. So ukti, adana, gamana, visarga, anandakaha. These are 5 essential kriyas. What about all other activities? He gives you all other activities are byproduct of this or essentially involves. He gives you krishi, example. Krishi means it's essentially agriculture. Vanijyam, the commerce. Seva, service to the whatever service you do. It means your employment, other things. And seva, adi, etc. is pancha, sevadyaha, panchas swantarbhavanti. They antarbhavanti. Panchasu antarbhavanti. So adyaha panchasu. In these 5 that I have mentioned, classified, they are included everything. So essentially 5 fundamental actions, ukti, adana, gamana, visarga, anandakaha, they are kriyas, and all other actions that one is performing can be brought into these 5 categories. So first he looks at all the activities that any living being is doing comes under these 5 categories. And therefore correspondingly there are 5 instruments of action, or indriyas we call it, and that's what is addressed in the next sloka. Vak pani pada payupasthaihi Vani payu pastaihi akshay tat kriya janihi akshay tat kriya janihi mukhadi golakeshvaste tat karmendriya panchakam together. Vakpani pada payupastaihi akshay tat kriya janihi mukhadi golakeshvaste tat karmendriya panchakam. So those are the 5 instruments for indriyas. Here we talk about karmendriyas. So we have covered the 5 jnanendriyas, sense organs. So we have 5 karmendriyas: vak, pani, pada, payu, upastha, etc. So these are 5. Vak is the speech, pani is hands, pada is legs. So correspondingly what he told the 5 activities is giving you the corresponding the organs of action. So what was the previous one? It is ukti, adana, gamana, visarga, anandakaha. So correspondingly vak, pani, pada, payu, upasthaihi. So those are 5 organs of action corresponding to 5 fundamental actions that he has classified. So they are akshayi. Akshayi, they are sense organs. Tat kriya janihi, and these that kriya janihi, they actions are carried out by these respectively has been illustrated. So we have 5 organs of action now which are specified. These are again part of the subtle body only. Mukhadi golakeshvaste tat karmendriya panchakam. So how do they express these? They have an instrument also. Just as the movement of motion is an activity, but that is expressed according to the some body part is involved in each of the equipment. Golakam is external body part. So Mukhadi, a face, etc. Face is where your speech is given from the space, from the mouth, right? Mukhadi Golake. Golake is a physical instrument. So Golakeshu Aste. Tat Karmi Indriya Panchakam. These 5 organs of actions are located or expressed through 5 Mukhadi, means etc. etc. So one can substitute for each one. The functions are being expressed. So that covers 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas through which I am interacting with the world. If those 10 are not there, then I cannot see the world, right? It's like a vegetable there. And total are 10. 5 plus 5, total 10. And this is what is called Ravana. Ravana is Dasamukha. Dasamukha means 10-headed monster, means he lives only at that level. 10-headed monster means, so whenever we are only in that level, we are all Ravanas. So that's what implication is. So when we have only live at the 5 sense organs and 5 eating and talking and all that, enjoying, everything else is at that level only. If we live, we are essentially Ravanas. So that's what Dasa Indriya, that's our Dasamukha. And this Navaratri is 10 is over to the 10th. Vijayadashmi comes anyway. Today I have a talk on Vijayadashmi, by the way. And let's do now he's going to introduce the mind, because these all are instruments and you need one central unit through which all these 5 instruments are being operating. And that he's going to hear in the next sloka 12. Mano Dashendriyadhyaksham Dashendriyadhyaksham Hrutpadmo Golake Stitam Tachantah Karanam Bhakyeshu Aswatantriyat Videndriyaihi Together. Mano Dashendriyadhyaksham Shrutpadmo Golake Stitam Tachantah Karanam Bhakyeshu Aswatantriyat Videndriyaihi. So Mano Dasha Indriya Adhyaksham. So Manaha Dasha Indriya Adhyaksham. It is a presiding over the 10 organs. 10 sense organs, 5 sense organs and 5 the organs of action. So it presides over. So therefore mind has to be there for the 5 senses and the 5 organs of actions to operate. If the mind is out of the mind, then none of the 10 can operate at all. So if he is unconscious or the mind is not able to function, none of the 5 can function at all. So it is adhyaksham. Adhyaksham means it is presiding over these 10 organs. So senses bring information to the mind, and mind through the intellect executes and actions are done back. So it is action and reaction. Action and reaction means whatever the information comes into him, then it assimilates, and then what need to be done, and then performs the action through the Karmendriyas. This is what whole life is, right? Human life is, I gather the world through the 5 senses, mind collects information, and in principle it's supposed to. It's supposed to provide it to the intellect for judgment, and intellect knows what is right and what is wrong, and it's sends out order, say this has to be done for this situation, and the mind is like a clerk. Head clerk collects information, gives to officer tells you something, then the head clerk has to pass it on the information to the people who need to do actions. So that is the purpose, is the whole things of work. This is the whole. Here mind is including intellect together, is one here is included. But mind and intellect can be subdivided into, one is this clerical head clerk versus the real adhyaksha. But if there is a disparity between these two, mind and intellect itself is split, then there is a problem. Mind wants to say collects information, it is supposed to act only as a clerk. Provide the information to the intellect. Intellect is the main governing factor, and intellect has to tell the mind, this has to be done this way. But if there is a split between the two, intellect knows what is right thing to do, but mind wants to do whatever it feels like doing. That means whenever there is a disparity between the intellect and the mind, then there is a problem. Right? There is a split personality. That's what a split personality is. Split personality is one has split into two and each making a decision here. Intellect is trying to tell not to do it. If this is you are having diabetic problem, don't eat sweets, and intellect tells you, mind says, nobody's watching, let me eat a little bit. Who is saying? It is the mind that makes a process, overrides the intellectual judgment. And Swami Chinmayananda calls it, that is what is called a sin. Sin is the disparity or divergence between the intellect and the mind. So whenever I compromise myself, right? Now you follow what when I am compromising myself, that means my intellect is saying something, my mind is pushing me somewhere else. So whenever I compromise my own value system, it is sin. Follow? The greater the divergence, the greater will be the sin. And even though I commit at that time, intellect will not keep quiet. I told you not to do it, why did you do it? So these are called the guilt problem, right? My conscience pricks. So this is one of the problems that in fact we are going to discuss that in the Upanishad class also. This is the essence of our, so you are punished by the sin, not for the sin. By the sin you yourself committed, you permission, because the intellect will not keep quiet. It will tell you, you shouldn't have done it, you shouldn't have done it, and I go through hell. Because of this intellectual judgment I made. So here he's only talking about, since in general, Adhyaksha is presiding deity, presiding officer of the Manaha, Dasendriyaha, for 10 organs. And where is it located, mind? Here is the statement by the Vedanta. Hrut Padme Golaki Sthitam. It is located in the lotus of the heart. Where is the heart, locus of the heart? Not left side, it's on the right side of that. Say, I am. That's I am. That is where, according to Vedanta, where the mind is located. Okay? But it is figurative. Hrut is the essence. So the heart of the problem is, So what is the essence of an individual? That's what the mind is, right? Where is the essential mind? Essentially, I am. I am is the essence of, because I am starts with before anything else, right? I am this, I am that, blah, blah, blah. Oh, all emotional, intellectual, physical, every property is centered on I am. So that I am is the essence, that is the heart of the individual. But here the location is, don't look into heart, and some people will keep meditating looking into heart, and you may get neck pain. So it is the essence of Hrut Padme Golaki Sthitam. It is in the lotus of the heart, and in that heart mind is there, and in that mind who is there? Lord says, Krishna says, I am there. Right? Who is there? Narayana is there. In what form? In Krishna form. Is a Chaitanya Swarupam, as conscious entity. I am is the essence of consciousness also. That is the real heart of the problem. Okay? So, Hrut Padme Golaki Sthitam Tat Chantah Karanam Bhakyeshu Asvatantrat Vena Indriyehi. But it is Antah Karanam, it is inner instrument. This mind is called inner instrument. Even though according to Vedanta it goes out and grasps the object and comes back, it is still an instrument. It itself cannot do anything by itself. Also, that's what it says, aswatantrayat. It has no independent way of knowing things. Even though mind may be functioning, if all the five senses are not there, you cannot know. Only through the five senses, mind has to use the five senses to know the world, or to transact with the world, with the five karmendriyas. So without the sense organs, it cannot independently act. So that's why I say, people say, I am doing exercise. What? I am lifting all the weights, lying down on my sofa with the mind. So that exercise will not do. I have to get up and do the exercise, because karmendriyas have to be involved. Mentally, I cannot sit down and do. There are mental activities that are indriyas need not be there, and that is puja, some mano puja, meditations. So this is where mental activities alone can do, which are not activities related to the karmendriyas and jnanendriyas. At that time, that is chintanam, where I can contemplate on it. There I don't have to run around and do lift or anything. I can just even close my eyes. I can't close my ears, therefore at least close my eyes and remove all the external inputs, disturbances, so that I can contemplate. Not that I had to close my eyes, but when I am in the beginning, it's better to close my eyes to contemplate on that. So it's called that aswatantra. There is no swatantram. That means independently it cannot function vena indriyahi, without the operating of the indriyas. Both karmendriyas and jnanendriyas have to be there for the mind to perform any action. Okay, that's what it is. So this completes the individual. So how he is bringing the information now? He classified the whole external world through 5 elements, panchabhutas, and respect to equipments all there, but he didn't go in through different types. He's going to come to that. But these 5 elements or primordial, from which again through panchikarana process, the grossification and all objects are being created. That's how the 5 elements from the external point. From the internal point, there is the subtle elements and also gross elements together also constituted in the body. Matter is coming from the gross elements, the mind is subtle. That we did in the first chapter he covered. And this 5 sense organs through which I am knowing the whole world, and 5 senses are located individually and centrally located collected by the mind. So he has now looked at the mind part and the world part. Now he is trying to bring these two together in the next sloka. Aksheshvartarpite Aksheshvartarpiteshvetadu Aksheshu arpitarteshu. So Aksheshvartarpiteshvetadu Gunadosha vicharakam Sattvam rajastamascha Sattvam rajastamascha Guna vikriyate hitaihi together. Aksheshvartarpiteshvetadu Gunadosha vicharakam Sattvam rajastamascha Guna vikriyate hitaihi. So Aksheshu artha arpiteshu. So acheshu means the in the senses, when the senses make contact with artha arpiteshu. So when the senses make a corresponding contact with the objects out there, sorry, maybe I say artha arpiteshu. So the respective objects that make contact, means eyes can only see colors and forms, the ears through ears I make contact with the sounds, and similarly taste and all that. So each sense organ is functioning in its field of activity and gathering the information of the world outside. So acheshu artha arpiteshu etad means this manas, this mind, guna dosha vicharakam. It inquires into what is guna dosham, things about good and bad. Dosha, guna means here good, and dosha, it inquires into vicharakam, it inquires. Now here is the problem. The world is just objects. They have nothing to do with the good or bad. Food is food, and whether sweet is sweet has nothing to do with diabetes, right? Sweet is just a sweet and hot is hot. They are just the property of the individual objects. But whether I like it or don't like it depends upon my mind. So here, who making a judgment call? Senses can only gather the attributes of the object that is out there, and the information is brought to the mind. So mind gathering the information through the senses, so that is just up to that is perception, right? Now it makes a judgment call. Who is making? This mind. On what basis it makes a judgment call? Based on its vasanas. Follow now? Based on what has been brought up with this. If you are Indian and all that, and from Andhra, you like very hot stuff. As soon as you see good avaka, he says, that's good, that's great. Other fellow will run away from it. But that's, so it's, who is making a judgment call? It's because of previous vasanas. So vasanas propelled mind is the one that is gathering the guna dosham. It is good or bad, nothing to do with objects. Objects are just objects. They have no good or bad. But the reaction of the mind, vicharakam, is etadu, that mind is really making this evaluation. And evaluation therefore depends upon the quality of the mind. What kind of mind depends upon what kind of judgment it makes based of the information that is gathered, depends upon the quality of the mind. So what are the qualities of the mind? We can say there are broadly three types of qualities, and according to that it is sattva, rajas, tamasu cha asya guna vikriyatehi taihi. So these are broadly can be classified as Sattva, Rajas, Tamaha cha asya gunaha. So, Sattva, Rajas, these are broadly Sattva guna, Rajo guna, Tamo guna. So, these are the three properties that according to Vedanta is classified based on our vasanas essentially. And hitaihi vikriyate. So vikriyate means it transacts or undergoes or modifies according to these three qualities that it has. So same thing, when you see people have different types of emotional expressions because the way they are reacting based on their vasanas. So even though it's nothing to do with the property of the objects, it is my reaction. And where is that coming? Because of my previous vasanas. How did my previous vasanas come? Because of, all the actions and activities. So by changing my previous vasanas, I can change my reaction to the world also. Now you follow? The ultimate result is, I want to change, I want to see the world as it is. Because I never see the world as it is. The problem is now you see, I never see the world as it is because it is always clouded or covered or interpreted by the mind because of the vasanas. So previous vasanas are due to sattva, rajas, tamo gunas, or in the qualities of those, will make my mind to make a judgment about what I see. So this is the fundamental problem where the objects individual, and the reaction is coming, and the reaction gets muddled by sattva, rajas, tamo guna. Okay, this has to be understood. So why one person reacts one way and the other person reacts the same? Reactions are different because of the mental vasana structure of that. So I can modify my mind to react better. That's what is culture, education, and all that will help me to develop a mind, an attitude that is better. So what is better and what is not better? Who is going to determine? So people think that it is all relative and all that. No. Better is that which makes the mind calm and quiet to reach the highest state. That is better. The one that makes me go on down and down and down is the one that essentially worst case. So this is what the value system Krishna talks about in 16th chapter, in every chapter more or less, 13th chapter, 16th chapter, 12th chapter, and even 17, 18, where you have Amanitvam, Madambitvam, Ahimsa, Shanti, Varjam. So we discussed in the 13th chapter, where you have to re-educate the mind in order to develop an attitude that one takes the mind to the higher. To higher means what? Higher to see things as it is. Because as it is only it is. The whole thing is just existence only. So that is the here the interpretation comes because of the mind. So he's going to now introduce the three qualities. He's going now trying to go to what are the each qualities is. Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas. Vairagyam Shantiraudaryam Ragyam Shantiraudaryam Ichadya Sattva Sambhavaha Ichadya Sattva Sambhavaha Kama Krodha Lobayatno Makrodhalo bayatno Ichadya rajasostitaha Ichadya rajatostitaha Together Vairagyam Shantiraudaryam Ichadya Sattva Sambhavaha Krama Krodha Lobayatno Ichadya Rajasostitaha. The Sandhi is there, Lobayatno Iti or Lobayatna Vityadi. So Vairagyam Shanti Audaryam. Vairagyam is detachment. So detachment is I want this, that kind of, likes and dislikes. So when you don't have the raga dveshas, you automatically take what it is, a judgment. So vairagyam, so the chanti is the forgiveness. Audaryam is udara bhavam, it is large-heartedness. Adhyaha, etc., and lot of it is being discussed in the 18th chapter, Sattva Guna Pradhanam, how one donates, how one speaks, how all the aspects are being discussed exhaustively in the 18th chapter of Gita. So these are Adi means etc. are Sattva Sambhava, are born out of Sattva Guna. So whenever you have this vairagyam, I'm not interested in it, I want it is a greediness, right? So when I not have, if it comes, it's okay. If it doesn't come also, it's okay. So you do not get perturbed with that. That is vairagyam. Vairagyam is not denouncing everything you have. Vairagyam is not depend on something other than yourself on for your happiness. That is the litmus test. Not that you have something and I have to give up. You do not depend on something other than yourself for your happiness. That is vairagi. Oh, I am completely vairagi, except I need a cup of coffee in the morning. That means I depend on cup of coffee for my happiness. Right? That's what. So how do you test it? That's how you test it. If I don't depend, yes, coffee, doesn't mean that you should drink coffee. It's not that. If coffee comes, okay. If it doesn't come also, it's okay. Then you are Vairagi. So there is a story of one gentleman. He has retired and says, he gave up everything. But he was still living there, and whatever comes in, he is enjoying. There's another sannyasi, says his friend who has taken up sannyasi, and says, hey, you are still enjoying and all that. And he said, no, I have given up. He said, what given up? You are still living in the house and you want this, and your food is coming every day, and there's varieties of what Vairagi you are. So what is Vairagi? You have to give up everything. Okay, let's go. No, let me go and get my Kamandalu, this, that. So who is Vairagi? This fellow depends upon his whatever that things. The other fellow is ready to give up anything because it's coming. And there is a story of brother-in-law story. So the wife was saying, my brother is so good and so good. He's all detached and he doesn't care for things, He's really a saintly person and all that. Because he always says, no, I don't care for this, I don't care for this. So husband was listening to no, he is not Vairagi, he told. So, what do you mean? What do you know you're not Vairagi? You are getting everything and all that. What is real Vairagi? How do you know you are real Vairagi? You want to know what Vairagi is? This is how. So he took the towel and left the house. Left the house. So the message is, don't keep the towels there. So Vairagi is mental attachments. It's not a physical attachment. It is a mental dependence on something other than yourself. This in fact is the litmus test for self-realization also.
Mental detachment. Vairagi is detachment.
Mental detachment.
You said attachment.
No, detachment, yeah. Mental detachment to the anything, objects, concepts, objects, emotions, anything. It is mental, because it's the mind that is making a choice, not the physical. It's the mind that is making a judgment call, and that is essentially in that. So we'll go into more details already time now. So we will do Purnamadaha Sloka, and then we get into discussions now. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.